Did you ever blood dope or use blood transfusions to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Cycling is a very demanding sport, physically speaking. In the Tour de France, cyclists are required to ride 100 to 230 kilometers per day over 26 days. There are only 2 rest days worked in. It's obvious that performance-enhancing supplements or substances play a large role in this regard.
So what are ergogenic aids? Well, simply put, they are performance-enhancing substances typically used by athletes to gain an advantage over their competitors. They either directly improve physiological variables associated with physical performance, or they remove restraints that may limit performance. Ergogenic aids are classified into 5 different groups: mechanical, pharmacological, physiological, psychological, and nutritional. Blood doping is a physiological aid.
When we talk about cycling, a few performance variables come up: VO2 max, cardiac output, mitochondria and mitochondrial enzymes, and the partial pressure of oxygen in the air. This relates to altitude. The most important factor, however, is VO2 max. This links to the body's ability to deliver oxygen to the working tissues. More importantly is the hemoglobin content of the blood, and this is directly related to the hematocrit of the blood, which is made up of 99% of red blood cells. So when we talk about blood doping and ergogenic aids, cyclists manipulate the amount of hematocrit in the blood to gain an advantage over their opponents.
The term blood doping refers to the process of infusing red blood cells in an attempt to increase the hemoglobin concentrations in an athlete's blood. This provides an advantage due to the athlete's blood increasing its oxygen carrying capacity. This offsets fatigue as tissues are perfused better than before and can therefore maintain steady state VO2 at high work rates. Clinically, blood doping is termed erythrocythemia and involves infusing either a blood sample taken from the athlete or from the blood of a donor. Only the red blood cells are infused, and so blood volume remains mainly unchanged. The body's capacity to produce red blood cells from hematopoietic stem cells is exploited. The red blood cells are removed and frozen up until the athlete requires it. Studies have shown a 3% to 34% improvement in performance following this procedure, with the most benefits seen in endurance athletes. An alternative way of increasing the red blood cell count is made possible by means of a recombinant analog of the hormone erythropoietin. This drug stimulates red blood cell production and so does not require invasive medical procedures. Responses to this EPO is highly variable, and consequently red blood cell production can get out of hand. In this case, the blood viscosity increases and cannot properly perfuse the heart and brain. Myocardial infarction and strokes result. Within 4 years of the introduction of EPO, 20 top cyclists in Europe died unexpectedly.
To find out more about blood doping in cycling, we spoke to Jared Sells-Wiedel, who is a sports scientist currently studying high-intensity intervals in endurance-trained cyclists.
Cycling specifically, because it's such a big endurance-based sport, we tend to use a lot of ergogenic aids and specifically supplementation. Caffeine especially, research has shown that it improves performance, especially high-intensity, short-duration performance. So caffeine is a major thing because it is a legal ergogenic aid. And it's a natural-based stimulant. It can help their performance specifically.
Then we asked Jared what he thought the most popular ergogenic aids are.
The most popular legal ones would be your form of supplementation. So that would be your electrolyte-based drink, and then your protein fuels for recovery. Those would be your most popular by far.
And illegal ones?
Illegal ones would be, obviously we know cycling specifically, there's been a lot of doping cases, and that's possibly because cycling's been the first sport that's really come out and fought against doping. So the most popular ones are blood doping, and then also artificial doping, so using like EPO, which you inject into your system. And specifically the arms are because the veins are easily accessible to get it into the system. And it's what we're finding is they are now microdosing. So they're taking really small amounts, which makes it a lot harder to detect. But that small amount of EPO can improve your performance by 2 to 3%. And at that elite level, 2 to 3% is a hell of a lot. We've made tremendous leaps, and specifically within cycling, because we had this big problem with athletes doping and that. So for instance, we now have what we call the biological passport. So they actually monitor athletes. They take blood samples at a regular interval. I'm not 100% sure what intervals, but I believe it's 3 to 6 month intervals. And they check those blood values, so your hematocrit levels and so on, to ensure that blood doping doesn't occur. Also, we're now hearing that nighttime testing is becoming legal. So a lot of athletes would then dope during the evening because they wouldn't be tested, and there'd be that layoff time where it would then work through your system. And now that's going to be combated with nighttime testing. And I mean, if we look at our top athletes, they're being tested on a regular basis. Every 1 to 2 weeks they're being tested. And our tests are evolving. So it's for the guys that are out there trying to cheat, it's like a very slim market, and we're going to catch up very soon.
We also spoke to Pippinell, who is a registered nurse and blood doping control officer for the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport. We asked her how blood doping tests are conducted.
Well, there are two sort of sides to it. The one thing that is that they've brought in fairly recently, the last couple of years, is that they do a blood profile on athletes. Now, they don't do it on every athlete that they test, but if you're in a certain category, like an elite sportist, then they will put you on a list, and they come and they take blood samples from that athlete at regular intervals. They will take these blood samples, and then obviously, you know, from a physiological point of view, your blood is made up of certain things, and they can see how many white blood cells, how many red blood cells, all those kind of things. So they build up this profile over a period of time. Now, when we do blood, or when we do a urine sample, one of the questions that we will ask the athlete is, what medication have you taken the last 7 days? And that includes supplements, and it includes, the other question that we also ask is, have you had a blood transfusion of late? So if that athlete indicates that they had a bit of a cold and they took medication, they will be able to see that on the blood profile, because obviously they're going to be more white blood cells, there are going to be more bacteria in the blood and all that kind of thing. So they can pick it up in any case, but then at least they can see that what the blood profile is saying and what the athlete's saying correlate. But then should that athlete be taking something illegally, it's also going to show.
Bring the action.